Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to Higurashi. Last time, Tomoe's doing some experiments, tested Rena, getting some pushback from the higher-ups. We're pretty, 99% sure Maida's a traitor, so I don't know what she's gonna do with that, but guess we're talking with Vegeta first. I'm guessing Maida's not, because, there's that explosion, which I assume obviously was for Tomoe, but I feel like Tomoe would have heard by now if Maida died in an explosion, so he's probably the traitor. So, anyways, let's just get started here. Out of breath, Vegeta burst into the First Division's office and didn't bother with a greeting as he rushed toward Tomoe, who was sitting in her old seat as assistant director. A day had passed since Tomoe had returned Rena Ryuju to Hinamizawa. On that day, Vegeta had returned home after a long overdue absence, but when Tomoe contacted him and informed him that Soma had sent over drug analysis results, he quickly came back to Kikuchi Station. She is a little cranky when it involves Tomoe. While still sympathizing with Vegeta's wife, she secretly felt thankful that he placed a higher priority on his duties. And she lamented her own shallowness for doubting him when she first heard that story from Yamokai. Finally see what these mysterious drugs are made of. Tylenol. No. Tylenol and Advil mixed. That's what's making them crazy. As Tomoe said that, she handed him a bundle of copy documents that were sent over via fax. Since Vegeta had no background in pharmacy, he was skimming it with a look on his face like all the technical terms were going over his head, but terms in there like unauthorized and gray AA hazard were enough to make him raise his head looking astonished. Yeah, honestly, if I saw a list of ingredients for a medicine I'm taking and it said unauthorized and grade AA hazard, I'd probably be freaking out too. What the heck? This is fucked up. Yep. Honestly, I don't mind experimentation in medicine, but it definitely needs consent. If you're not consenting, that's like one of the most fucked up things ever, honestly. It's literally human testing without the human knowing. If they consent, then I'm all for it, if it helps advance medicine, but this is just crazy. The analysis result of the drug Natsumi was taking were beyond Tomoe's expectations. Soma stated that it had clear benefits for treating mental illness, but the main issues were the two items Vegeta focused on. It was unlicensed and a grade AA hazard. The latter in particular makes it subject to narcotics control laws, which are even more strict than pharmaceutical affair laws. Violators will almost certainly be charged and sentenced to up to 10 years in prison. Even medical personnel need to go through rigorous examination and procedures to obtain the necessary license to handle it, so it's not something a general hospital has the authority to prescribe to normal patients. I'm not a medical expert, so I don't know what they're talking about. At least she's explaining it in a way that anyone can understand, so I get it, kinda. But I bet the drawbacks are probably weird. You probably feel almost euphoric if it increased your brain speed or brain to body control transmissions, which is what I think they're saying. Like, once that goes bad, you probably feel really off. Your body's not moving like it was before. Most causes of human stress occur when emotional thoughts can't be processed properly. For example, when they have to accept the unintended consequences of their actions, such as setbacks, discord, or conflicts with others. Naturally, people begin to feel bewilderment and regret. And when they're forced to sort out and deal with those suppressed negative emotions, they begin to feel lost and suffer anxiety. That's stress. That stress is usually relieved when a solution is found and eventually disappears. For example, by diverting your attention towards some other activity like exercise or watching TV, or by organizing your thoughts through conversation with your family, friends, or lovers, where you look back on your troubles. Aside from that, worries can be settled as time moves on. When you forcefully process diluted information left in the memory and reflect on it in hindsight. In doing so, most worries can be eliminated before they get any worse. At times, people can end up developing negative thoughts and emotions as a result of their accumulating emotional distress. I just skipped stuff. And find themselves unable to see a way out. If the person has no hobbies they can distract themselves with to turn their mood around, nobody to talk things over with, and ultimately no way to leave the problem behind, they'll stay trapped in their shell. In a broad sense, that mental state can be described as depression, and most of the mental illnesses in the world originate from that source. Look at me learning. That means to medically resolve that mental state is often through medical counseling, to assist the patient with unraveling their stagnant thoughts. Or alternatively, to administer drugs with active components that improve neurotransmission capacity so that the patient themselves can resolve their mental problems.
要するに患者の思考能力を上げてその頭の中に溜まった悩みを一気に押し流させるということ。ええ、そうよ。
Still a bit confusing, but I get it.
だけど、一番の問題はこの薬に抗精神伝達系の成分が多量に含まれていることなの。これのせいでせっかく処理されたはずの精神情報が思考内にとどまってしまい、理性で制御できる以上の情報量が本人の心に蓄積されてしまう。
The brain's getting overloaded, maybe.
それってどういうことなんですか？
人間の理性ってのは時代劇でいうところの関所。悩みに関係するあらゆる要因をもとに構築された感情と思考が常識や道徳に従って正しいか正しくないか、それを判断だけど、
I skipped, my bad.
その関所で封鎖できる以上の情報量が来たらどうなる？
感情に理性が打ち負かされるってことですか？
There you go. Okay, I get it. That's why they seem so, like, sussy, because they lose their reasoning. That actually makes a lot of sense.
乱暴な例えだけど、実際に
Why
は
they
そうい
go
うこと。
crazy. Because they can't reasonably think about the situation. And just rely on their emotions, which are usually filled with suspicion when they're, full syndrome. But, like, I'm still kind of confused, because they're talking about this drug, but it also, like, it also works like Hinamizawa syndrome. So I still think they're using this on Hinamizawa syndrome people, like, as a test. But it's still weird. I don't know. Maybe this is like a weird antidote. Or a controller, at least.
認識力に混乱が生じて妄想と現実の区別がつかなくなる副作用があるわ。
Or maybe this is like a secret tech to make Hinamizawa syndrome like a weapon they can like deploy somewhere. I don't know. A lot can happen. It's from Tokyo, man. We don't know how fucked up they can be. In other words, no matter what outlandish result outlandish results their thoughts and feelings may lead to, they can subconsciously interpret them as just a dream. It's not created from some crafty or cunning idea to justify themselves and avoid accepting any guilt. That thought process happens automatically and forcefully. Thus, even when the time comes to take responsibility, the subject doesn't realize they committed a crime at all, so often deliberation can be time-consuming and the results can be controversial even after a conclusion is reached.
なんか聞けば聞くほどにとんでもない薬ですね。善人でも悪人に変えてしまえる。まさに悪魔の薬ですか。
Yep, sounds pretty fucked up to me.
まして安易に感情の安定を得られるってのが危険性を増しているわね。その薬を飲めば楽になれるというのは
Ooh. Yeah, that's what I
常
was
習へとつ
saying
ながる
too.
最も自然な欲求。
That if it like heightens your transmission from brain to body, like it'd be obviously you'd be acting more efficient and it'll feel better than your normal self, so you'd want to take it constantly.
ある意味で麻薬みたいなものだわ。
Normally, negative emotions like anger, hatred, and resentment can be controlled by reason. But depending on a person's personality and the environment they were raised in, there are people out there who can't effectively control their emotions. And from the components of the drug, it can be inferred that the problem is their propensity to snap in an emotional explosion that can't be suppressed. In that case, it's something that should be corrected through education and interaction with friends. But when the symptoms manifested, the two of them would likely have taken this fast-acting drug to achieve mental stability. However, the stronger the clinical effects, the greater the degree of dependence and subsequent withdrawal symptoms. The so-called sudden emotional outbursts that are suppressed while taking the medication are increased when the drug wears off. In that moment, they feel elevated levels of paranoia, the urge to cause destruction, and otherwise extreme ways of thinking. In other words, that temporary explosion of emotion present at an elevated risk of unexpected behavior.
その効用は強すぎるため、日本国内では確実に劇薬対象になると相馬さんは書いている。欧米では使用禁止にもなったそうね。
Jesus.
死亡者が出て。
And we're still using it, huh?
しかも自己嫌悪から発展して自傷行為を喚起するおまけ付きか。でもこれで大体の合点がいったわ。
Tomoe recalled the scene immediately before she was attacked by Natsumi in the park, when she stared at her with cruel eyes and scratched her throat. Tomoe quivered just remembering it. If she hadn't realized what was happening there and left Natsumi alone, she probably wouldn't have survived. And she commended her own intuition for noticing that she was scratching her throat even from that distance.
そうだ。
But that's Hinamizawa syndrome. It's kind of weird because it like does the same thing as Hinamizawa syndrome, so it's hard to tell what's what. Tomoe suddenly thought of something. It was the deceased nurse Yoko Hiranuma who was suspected of killing Kohei Sawamura. Yeah, they had her swallow that drug, which is interesting because I initially thought it was going to be the virus. The other thing they use in actual Higurashi, but I guess that's through injection only, so it made sense that they would use the pill form. I didn't read that, did I? In the Tomoe suddenly thought of something. It was about the deceased nurse Yoko Hiranuma who was suspected of killing Kohei Sawamura. In that incident, Hiranuma seemed to commit suicide in resignation while surrounded by Hanjo and the other detectives from Ibaraki Professional Police. But what if that was a similar case of self-harm? And what if someone deliberately gave her this drug beforehand?
自殺でも開始でもない
Dun
殺人
dun
だ
dun. The evidence of that was the drug-like compound found in her stomach. They suggested it may have been sleeping pills or motion sickness medication, but she didn't understand the details of the analysis. But what if someone had administered this drug to the nurse and intentionally caused her to go out of control? The probability seemed high. She'd have to review the cause of death and autopsy charts again. But if that's the case, then who did it? And what on earth was it for?
どうします、ミナイさん。
え？
決まってるじゃないですか。ローエル社ですよ。
Well, they're pushing the drug, but it goes deeper than that.
この成分配置はローエル社が以前に商標登録したプラシルに酷似していると書いてあります。ならば、そこに強制捜査をかければ、あるいは。
It's not that easy. Think of the politics.
それはダメ。行くにはまだ準備不足よ。
Tomoe immediately shot down Fujita's proposal. That was the first thing that came to mind for her too, but as long as the drug isn't licensed in Japan, Lowell could simply deny that it was brought into the country and it would end at that.
それに、ゴグラの大学病院に強制捜査をかけるには、裁判所と同時に厚生省の許可も必要となる。その際に、今回の薬の情報が伝われば、麻薬取締官事務所、下手をすれば、こっちの捜査活動に何かと横やりを入れてくるかもしれない。マトリと警察の仲の悪さは昔から有名だもんね。
Okay, why can't we all get along, man?
だったらなおさら。
大事なのはこの薬が危険なことじゃない。この危険を一体誰がどうやって持ち込んだかなのよ。ローウェル社か、あるいはその関連企業が国内への持ち込みに関わっていたという有力な証拠がね。以前のローウェル事件のこと、あなたも少しは知っているでしょ。
Yep. I do too. Vegeta didn't know it as well as Tomoe, but he was familiar with the case. At the time, they learned that human experiments were being conducted, but in the end, the higher-ups in the company couldn't be arrested. Then, it would be necessary to determine who inherited Lowell Inc. or its know-how, and find out how they may be connected to this hospital.
じゃあ、一体どうすれば。
Keep things quiet, investigate quietly.
とにかく、この薬を持ち込んだ黒幕がいるはずよ。それを探し出すのが先。そのための参考人を今捜査本部が全力を挙げて洗っているところよ。どうしたの、藤田君。
まだ。俺は
Yeah, it's pretty wild, honestly.
信じられないんですが。
Sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's not. Fujita let out a despondent cry and bit his lip. The material witness Tomoe referred to was the detective from Tatsuchi Station who had recently gone missing, Shiro Hanada. So he's actually disappeared. I guess he knows his cover's blown. Yeah. So that's what he was referring to more. I mean, they were friends, so it is kind of weird. In fact, he was at a loss for words when Tomoe told him that his direct superior, Yanamura, and even Yamokai had lost all contact with him. Fujita even shouted on the spot in agitation, "You bastard, I'll kill you." He was so scattered that Tomoe had a hard time calming him down. It's a rough backstab, man. Guess we aren't getting that confrontation today. She found out about it when she contacted Tatsuchi Station after finishing up Reina Ryugu's counseling at NRIPS. That was when Tomoe first learned the police car she was riding exploded at the Tatsuchi service area.
Wonder
Wonder if Hanado It's the one who set the explosives before for Tomoe's car. He's just bad at timing it then.
いえ、鑑識の話では、どうやら燃料系にひびが入って車内にガソリンが流れ込み、揮発したそれらに警察無線の電気コードの火花が反応して爆発したと。整備不良との話でしたが。
Surely.
ありえない。そんなはずないわ。
Hanada was smoking the whole time they were driving to the Kikuchi service area. If it was actually a maintenance issue, Tomoe's car would have exploded back when they were on the highway. And what's more, could the weak electrical signal from a police radio really ignite a fire? Even if the insulated coating were peeled off, that seemed unlikely. No. Wait a minute. There was a similar case half a year ago, when she and Madoka were heading back after a meal and a vandal broke inside and started the car.
それで彼は無事なの？
え？
花田くんよ。私、岐阜県警まで彼の運転で行ってきたのよ。彼から連絡なかったの？
いえ。っていうか、ミナイさん、花田と一緒に。
Yeah, I didn't put his name on the list. I guess he knew he was gonna disappear after this day, whether he succeeded or not.
こっちの車両管理の掲示板には、ミナイさんのお名前しか書かれてなかったんですが。
With that, Tomoe's suspicion turned to conviction. The person who betrayed them was someone she has always relied on, Shiro Hanada.
他にも
It's rough, but it was kind of expected.
あの子、尾崎渚の死を知らなかったそうよ。それに、半年前、私が乗ってきた大石さんの車には、一切手を触れたことがないって。
それって、本当なんですか？
本人の言うことだから確証はない。でも。
Who could she trust now? Her judgment on that was now completely different than it was just a few days ago. If she hadn't followed Rena the other day, she would have completely believed Hanada's report and continued to suspect her. As a result, even if he had interfered with Matsuoka's work, it would have been difficult for her to tell who was involved. And furthermore, if Rena came to Kikuchi and learned of Nagisa's death, she could be killed to silence her. Even though it wasn't a pleasant thought, Tomoe couldn't help but feel relieved that they had avoided a worst-case scenario. Think the slight flashback buff that happened back then.
とにかく、今は花田くんの行方を調べましょう。捜査本部にも報告して、緊急手配をかけるわ。
わかりました。じゃあ早速俺、山村さんに報告を。
あ、その前に、藤田くん。
Vegeta was already rushing out of the room, but on Tomoe's call he turned back and said, "What is it?" Then Tomoe slowly walked up to him and... Even holding back a little, she struck the side of Vegeta's face with a good hard punch. What was that for? Little sucker punch?
裏切りの罰よ。
Oh, from before.
傷ついたんだからね。
But it was, you know, it had good intentions at least. It wasn't like Hanada. It's deserved, I guess. Little punch never hurt anyone. Well, that's not true, but... Vegeta didn't understand what she meant, but given the length of their relationship, he realized it must be because of that discussion related to the case. That damn chief, even though Vegeta told him to keep it a secret from Minai-san. You really think he would? He's the damn chief, he didn't do what he want. Work related.
でも、心配してくれて嬉しかった。それは本心。だけど、ここまで来て誰かにお任せって性に合わないの。だから最後まで一緒にやらせて。お願い。
ミナイさん。
それに私だけ安全な場所にいて、あなたに何かあったら そっちの方が大変よ。うちの亭主を危険な目に遭わせやがってって奥さん署内に殴り込んでくるかもね。
Can't imagine that.
悪いけどそんな面倒を見るのは私。まっぴらごめんだから。
Fujita was once again impressed, and Yamokai threatened him, "If you don't speak honestly, I'll tell your wife." Got it? Even though he gave in to that threat, it certainly was something he was concerned about himself. So, it actually felt refreshing to receive a blow from Tomoe.
とりあえずあとちょっとよろしく頼むわね、藤田くん。
はい。
We're all pumped up. Love to see it. In any case, there's only 1 month left, and they'd spend that time pursuing this man, no matter what. Fujita formed a slightly proud salute as he made that decision deep in his heart. Get the traitor. I support it. Meanwhile, at night,
姫さん、本当
Mino.
にやっちまったな。
What's he up to, man? It's been a while.
やってくれましたね。正直、あそこまでとは思いませんでしたよ。
A man in a suit breathed a sigh of admiration. I forgot who this Akiyamada is. Almost astonishment as he poured some beer into Mino's nearby empty glass. It poured out a little faster than expected, so the table got splashed with the overflowing white bubbles, but Mino didn't seem to mind and he drank it all at once.
さすがミナイさんの娘ってのはもう死後だな。むしろ今後はミナイ巴の父も刑事だったってな言い方になるんだろう。
She will surpass her father.
そうですね。ミナイ2世ではなく、初代ミナイ。父親は元祖ミナイというところですか。
It was just the swap of the father-daughter order, but the man facing Mino completely understood what he was getting at and shrugged it off with a laugh. The upper ranks of the police department viewed her as a sort of hereditary princess, but clearly that was a flagrant mistake. It might be a better example of a pupil surpassing her teacher.
大したもんだ、本当に。
They say that unexpected things often happen, but who would expect it to go this far? Honestly, a case where NRIPS and Prefectural HQ worked together despite their cultural differences was a great honor.
警察に限らず官公庁ってのは前例主義だからな。一度こういうことがあったとなれば、今後同様のケースを発足させるのが楽になる。
We support unity, I guess.
そうしてプロファイリング捜査の手法を現場へ浸透させていく前線基地を築くのが本来の目的だったんだが。
お姫さん、前線基地どころか、そこから城内に攻め込んでしまいましたな。敵さんはよっぽど慌てているようですね。先日もあの子を警察車両ごと爆死させようとしたくらいですし。
Yeah, that was rough.
確かに。半年前の爆破事件は脅しみたいなもんだが、今回は相当マジだ。
Should have killed her when they could. She's getting too powerful. The bombing incident last year involved Tomoe and Madoka certainly was a disastrous accident that could have caused serious injury. Thank you, random car hijackers, for your life. At least you did something good before it ended. But the forensic team concluded that the smell of gasoline and the obvious handiwork would have made the situation clear to an attentive person like Tomoe.
吹っ飛ばされた車上荒らしはお気の毒ですが、それに気づかずエンジンをかける方が不用心ですね。むしろ仕掛けた本人が一番肝を冷やしたんじゃないですか。脅しのはずなのに巻き添えになってはしないかと。
そうかもな。ただ数日前のあれは聞く限りやばかった。C4、プラスチック爆弾が警察無線の電源機に巧妙に仕掛けられ
Okay,
た。
so they have the bid
それに燃
details.
料タンクが誘爆する仕組みだ。
Jesus, C4.
無事に怪我もなく回避できたのは運としか言いようがない。
She got in the car and noticed her companion wasn't there, And knowing Tomoe, she'd undoubtedly use the radio to report it to Kakuchi Station while waiting for him. Yeah, I guess that was the strat. Parking right in front of the gas station was a cunning choice. Even if she noticed the smell, she'd think it was normal given the location. Actually, yeah, it's very well played. Luckily, they didn't know about the flashback buff saving us.
だとしたら、敵にとっては結構痛い話ですね。
But then who answered the radio? Because it goes off when the radio goes off. Or I guess it would automatically, like when it ringed.
今頃足跡を消すために躍起になってるんじゃありませんか。
その前に抑えるぜ。で、秋山、公安はどこまで掴んでいたんだ？
Oh, it's Akiyama. Okay, I do remember him. I know his name sounded familiar. He's Akasaka's boss. Let's go. The man called Akiyama drank his beer, then gently turned his gaze out the window to check on his subordinates guarding the surrounding area. Even among his longest trained subordinates, there were among his most trustworthy, and moreover, they were cleverly disguised so nobody would recognize them as policemen. Additionally, the two of them were in a private room located farther away than any other, and Akiyama himself checked for the presence of listening devices and confirmed it was clean before entering the room. As a public security officer, he was especially cautious, and as a former member of public security, Mino completely understood the need for these precautions.
まず報告の前に、前野さん、アルファベットプロジェクトってご存知ですか？
I am. That's the nuclear weapons thing, right?
アルファベットプロジェクト？
They did mention that in mainline Higurashi.
略称 AP、アトミック、バイオロジカル。
Yeah, okay, not just nuclear, but it's like a special weapons project. So nuclear bombs, chemical weapons, biological weapons.
といった方がいいでしょうかね。
ああ、それなら聞いたことがある。あの小泉のじじいが各所に手を回して脅した末に、金をむしり取って立ち上げた時代遅れの研究会だろう。
Mino looked exasperated as he muttered to himself, that jackass. Mino was in the forefront as a public security investigator when the Lowell incident came to light. For that reason, just speaking the name brought him anger and hatred. Damn. Well, we knew that because Tokyo was involved. Well, I assume Tokyo was involved. I don't think they officially made the connection.
戦後数十年の短期間で財閥並みの資産を築くなんて汚い真似をしてこなきゃ不可能だ。それに奴はもともと軍医だ。データの流出とヤバい実験に関与してたって言われても俺は全然驚かないさ。
全くです。それでも結局検察庁の特捜部も追い切れませんでしたね。死ぬ前に紫綬褒章まで下された時には何の悪い冗談だと公安一同抗議を叩きつけたくなりましたよ。
Yeah, but like who cares about a Medal of Honor if he's dead?
ああいう輩は絶対ろくな死に方はしない。
I agree, karma did not catch up with him.
この前見事に天寿を全うか。
At least he was nice to talk to, though. Smiley face.
神も仏もありゃしね。
お気持ちよくわかります。
That wasn't lip service. Akiyama was speaking sincerely while pouring out another glass of beer. The Lowell incident was one of the most shameful cases during Mino's tenure at public security. Not only did they fail to solve the case, but a senior detective who was like a brother to him was murdered during the course of the investigation, and they never managed to catch the culprit. And what's more, the Fitzer directly dealing with the mastermind managed to evade arrest and passed away as a hypocrite. It was humiliating as a police officer, and a painful blow to the pride of someone as a career-oriented as Mino. Akiyama understood that because he had been in the same position. No matter how many incidents you get involved in, the wounds of failure never completely heal. That dutiful sense of purpose was his reason to exist.
まあそれはいいとして AP なんて要は戦争特需の旨味を忘れられない連中がもっともらしく国防だ国益だとか言って新兵器の研究ごっこをやってるやつだろう。 核なんて論外。生化学も国際条約の関係上開発なんて不可能。本気でやってるのかすら怪しいもんだ。
Yeah, it's kind of hard to make nukes in secret from the government.
それが
そこで小泉のおじい様が生前肝入りになって後押ししていた研究がひなみ沢症候群ってやつ。
So Akiyama knew all this, huh? And this was like, actually I don't know if Koizumi died, but like did he know this when he sent Akasaka to check out Hinamizawa back when the minister's grandson got kidnapped?
その研究機関を乾燥地に作って
I forgot when Koizumi died. I actually think it was like only a year or two ago, so he wouldn't have died then.
ひなみ沢症候群？病気か何かか？
一種の風土病と聞きました。どうやら寄生虫だかウイルスだかが脳内に入り込んで、その宿主の意識を乗っ取ってしまう。で、その治療薬の研究を入江機関、表向けには入江診療所で行っているんですがね。
So they know that. That's interesting that the police know that, or like some form of government knows that. That's not on Tokyo's side.
そこで使用されている薬のデータの一部がローベル社が現在開発中のプラシルの改良試薬に流用されている。
Oh. That's why they seem so similar to Hinamizawa syndrome, maybe? As he said that, Akiyama spread a document out on the table detailing the formula composition with photos. Aside from the color of the capsules, the composition was very similar at first glance. No, it was identical.
どういうことだ？
いわゆるコピー薬ってことですよ。以前の薬は日本での事件があって以来、海外でもさっぱり売れなくなったらしいですからね。とはいえ、一時は精神安定薬としてそれなりのニーズがあっただけに、その改良には巨額の研究資金が投入されています。しかし、それ以上に高い効能を持った薬が現れたとなれば、話は少々変わってくる。
つまり、それが製品化される前に、プラシルの新型に差し替えて発表しちまえばいいってわけか。
Akiyama shrugged his shoulders to affirm Mino's hunch. It was an egregious story.
まあ、ひなみ沢症候群ってのは特殊な病気で、それ専用に作られた薬のデータをそのまま利用するわけにはいきません。
But they're using that data to help with other mental diseases, I guess.
ですから、彼らなりに分析して成分構成を汎用性の高いものへ
Interesting.
と。
So it's not a weapon, it's like a super drug, but it still lasts apparently.
そして
They've not
その
succeeded.
試薬を国内で販売するために厚生省の認可を申請中ってわけです。
しかし、プラシルの悪名は国内でも根強いからな。
So they're probably changing the branding and stuff.
改良版とはいえ、そのままの名前で売り出せるとはとても思えんぞ。
ええ。一度の審査で新薬の認可が下りるってことは確かにほとんどありませんが、
Yeah,
薬
I'd
事
be
審査会の
too
連中
after
も
that huge
13年
scandal.
前のことがあってかかなり慎重みたいです。実際少し前に審査会には申請を行ったのですが、結局却下されたそうで、また臨床試験の協力を各方面の医療機関に求めているみたいなのですが、どこからも拒否されているようですよ。
当然だな。死亡事故を起こしたような危険性もそうだが、収賄を疑われるのは目に見えているしな。
For sure. In developing new drugs, it's common to ask hospitals and other organizations to conduct clinical trials to identify side effects that may not have been found in animal testing. Of course, the content and prescriptions are carried out in a careful manner, in an environment where an authorized doctor can vouch for its safety. Since it requires the trust and cooperation of the doctor and the hospital as a whole to study the new drug, they're naturally reluctant to handle any high-risk items.
ただ、抗精神作用をもたらす薬ってのは扱いが難しいだけに確かに貴重で、成功すれば巨万の富をもたらす金の卵です。医薬目的はもちろんですが、その他にも快楽や軍事利用、使い道は数多くあり、
Recreational use is kind of crazy.
価格はそれこそ青天井だ。
The new way to get high.
そのためにデータ集めに関しては企業側も必死で、謝礼なども含めていろいろ 実弾が飛び交っています。そんな感じに出来上がった研究データはそれこそ億単位の代物です。
おかげで賄賂天国か。救わだったらそんなデータは製薬企業にとってはそれこそ垂涎ものか。
Probably. It's an arms race in the pharmaceutical company wars.
で
I'd
その審
imagine.
査を通すためにまた賄賂をばらまいているのか。
いえ、逆です。全く運動していないんです。
はあ
Ordinarily, survey data from authoritative doctors is mandatory for approval, but doctors with fame and renowned ability are always in high demand from pharmaceutical companies. Thus, in order to obtain their cooperation, it's unnecessary to pay them a suitable reward and cover with the research fees, and unaccounted for funds may be included as well. For that reason, it's nearly impossible to bypass the approval process without lobbying the doctors involved.
なるほど。読めたぞ。
Mino stamped the cigarette he was smoking into the ashtray as he said
そ
that.
の入江機関で研究中の薬のデータを流用し、コピー薬を作る。その薬を同じ病、ひなみ沢症候群を患っている患者に処方して、比較試験を行う。
So they're first testing it on Hinamizawa syndrome people. I see.
そこで問題点を洗い出し、
That
改
makes
良を
sense.
重ねて製品化へと結びつける。そんなところか。
Look at that scam, dude. It all made sense why there's drugs involved now.
ええ、そういうことです。
So they've been testing for a while. Just they were testing Rena back when she was young.
AP 内の実験ならわざわざ臨床試験の許諾を得る必要もありませんしね。
ということは、審査会に申請を出しているのはそのダミーってことか。
ローベル社の製品に対するアレルギーはもう日本人の中に浸透していますからね。連中は日本での販売をとうに諦めている。むしろそれならもっと膨大な人口を要する国で販売した方が効率的です。ですから日本は製品化につなげるためのただの実験場。
Well, that's not nice. Made sense, but not nice.
つくづくふざけた話ですよ。
In all likelihood, the drug developed and manufactured by Lowell Inc. would be sold in foreign countries. They were no longer thinking of entering the relatively small Japanese market. Their interest was primarily in collecting data and studying the drug in clinical trials.
その実験を AP に潜り込ませるとはな。
It was truly crafty and yet deeply ironic plot. AP, a secret organization established for national defense and national interests, was providing the legwork for the benefit of foreign businesses. It's kind of funny though, because I thought the Alphabet project got canned by Tokyo in this final year for the good arc. Like with the shift in power, they're trying to shut that down in the Hinamizawa research, so. But this one seems like it's in full throttle right now. But I guess it could be like the factions of Tokyo still working under the majority power, right? Then what's her name? Noizumi? Whatever, that girl's faction. Mino was tempted to grumble about how it was a masterful stroke of genius on the part of the trader that thought it up.
で、その研究データを集めて横流ししているやつがいると？誰だ？
ネタはまだ確定していません。ただ小泉のじいさま亡き後 AP を仕切っているのは官房長官の奥野、そして厚生大臣の千葉です。
その直下にいる入江高野とかいう研究者は
They know
風土病の解
Taka
明が
now.
生きがいみたいな連中だから除外するとして、黒っぽいのは奥野か千葉。さらに言えば
Why
奥
not
野は
both?
今度の衆議院選挙で与党が勝った場合、次期幹事長の座は間違いないわけだから。
前の厚生大臣様が一番臭いですね。立場的にも元医薬局の課長、そして当時同期入省だった大沼茂が逮捕されている。黒っぽいどころか真っ黒ですよ。
千葉か。 なるほど。
After hearing that, Mino held his hand to his chin. Then he pulled the notebook out of his inside pocket and flipped through it.
何か心当たりでも？
ああ、13年前のローウェル事件ってのは確かにでかい医薬スキャンダルだった。知っての通り、数年にわたる捜査の末、多くの関係者連中がしょっぴかれて、賄賂だのザル審査だのとマスコミ連中は大騒ぎしてたな。だが実は他の面もあった。
どういうことですか？
ローウェル事件では、さっきも出た大沼って当時の医薬局次長が逮捕されたが、この情報はもともとローウェル社自身が暴露したものなのさ。向こうの議会で追及された末のことだったが、それが元で日本国内でも事件が明るみになった。実際そこで情報が出ていなかったら、国内の死亡事故は全部闇に葬られていたかもしれないとまで言われている。
まさかそれじゃ。
大沼茂は単なるスケープなので、実際には彼とつながりの深かった今村
That's what they do in companies. Someone has to take the fall.
勢力を弱めさせる目的があったそうだ。当時強い発言力を持ち、アジア寄りの外交を推進しようとしていたその外相の存在が、それと反対する西側諸国にとっては目障りだったってことだろう。
This is some big brain politics,
そ
man.
してその西側寄りの外交を支持していたのが、当時の防衛庁長官の奥野。さらに彼の盟友の千葉だった。
In other words, the true objective of the Lowell incident was not to condemn the distributors of dangerous drugs, but to change the course of Japanese politics. To that end, they deliberately brought dangerous drugs into Japan that would cause problems, knowing that would bring a light would politically eliminate the opposition party members who were connected to it. It's actually like 10 billion IQ moves going on.
そこまでやるのか。開口とはそこまで。
As expected, Akiyama was completely shocked when he heard the horrifying truth. Compared to modern politicians who look the other way against minor corruption when it benefits them, this was on a completely different level.
だったら、なぜ千葉がそのルートの掘り起こしを？自分の競争相手を葬った陰謀をどうして再び行おうとしているんですか？
スケールの違いだよ。別に奴はどこぞの国の意志でなんか動いていない。おそらく知りもしないだろう。だから大沼が捕まって自分が助かった理由なんて、ただ運が良かった程度にしか思っていない。そしてもう一度始めたってことは決まっている。実際にやっていたのは大沼じゃない。その医薬局次長の名義を利用した千葉本人ってことさ。だから大沼が逮捕されて、そのほとぼりが冷めた頃になってまた始めようと思ったんだろう。それだけプラシル絡みの話は懐に入る金額が桁違いだったってことだ。バカな話だよ。
Akiyama poured out another lukewarm beer, seeking to moisten his dried throat. When it comes to matters Public Security Bureau is involved in, this level of intentional conspiracy isn't all that uncommon. Nevertheless, he was deeply shocked and felt ashamed of himself for his inexperienced response.
さすが警察庁の影の情報部と言われるだけある。
ミナイさんはそれを掴んでいたのかもな。
That's why they got rid of him.
いや、なんでもない。
で、このことはお姫さんには？
荒川を使う。ただ千葉のことはまだだな。危険すぎる。
ですね。
This was Tomoe, and if she knew the full story of what Lowell Inc. was up to this time and that Chiba was the man lurking behind it, she wouldn't hesitate to arrest him. But when you're fighting against politicians, ordinary force simply won't cut it. In fact, getting caught up in something like that could even cost you your life. Just like her
ひょ
father.
っとしたら連中の方から接触があるかもしれん。奴ら姫さんの動きが
Yeah,
目
gotta
障
play
り
it
に思え
safe
て仕方がないだろうからな。
And strategically. I guess that's why, if you think all this shit was going in the background in the original Higurashi, they never tried for these guys in Tokyo just because they didn't have a good reason. But once they got evidence And that whole big thing happened in Hinamizawa is like their perfect opportunity to strike, right?
おとりにしますか。
バカ言うなよ。そんなことしてみろ。俺はミナイさんにたたり殺されるっての。
ですね。
Akiyama smiled and laughed and used his lighter to light the cigarette Mino held to his mouth. After a quick hand wave to show his gratitude, he exhaled a full puff of smoke out the
無
window.
茶するなよ、姫さん。ここまで来ると敵はなりふり構わなくなってくるぞ。
Mino pictured Tomoe's face with the strong, earnest conviction that was always in her eyes and smiled to himself. Even without her father, she was a bright woman. If possible, he wanted her to live a long life and move ahead in the world. He clung to those selfless thoughts.
まあそんなわけだから例の件はよろしく頼むぞ。
Bring in Akasato. We need a
上からの
karate
ステップに
master.
逆らう真似までさせて申し訳ない限りだがな。
何を今更ですよ。
Bring in the trio, the ultimate cop trio.
前野さんの秘蔵っ子なら私にとっては弟、いや妹弟子みたいなものです。部長にもうまくねじ込んでみせますのでお気になさらず。
そうか。恩に切る。使わずに済めば万々歳だが、この分だとそうも言ってられんからな。
確かに。ああ、それと
なんだ。
あとですね、この千葉の第二秘書が塚田っていうんですが、
Sukada.
なかなか面白いことが分かりましたよ。
ほう。
The secret conversation between the two of them continued well into the night.
なるほど。
And we'll call that a wrap for this episode. Very interesting. Lots of politics, lots of science stuff, but I'm just happy to learn. Anyways, thank you guys for watching Higurashi, and next time we'll see what happens when Tomoe gets information of what to do. Now that public security is involved, I feel Atasato is going to come in soon, you know? And we'll have the squad ready to fight against Lobel and Tokyo. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on another episode of Higurashi, the Console Arts. Later.